Merry meet everyone, this is Lee, and I'll be doing a series of videos, starting with this one, where I'll be discussing witchcraft and various aspects of it. The practice, history, the gods, plus anything else that you viewers might request videos on. This first one is just going to be a get to know me, I guess. I've been interested in witchcraft since I was about 12 years old. I started reading up on it in the local library. Now, mind you, this was back in the 80s, so access to good resources was difficult to find. You basically got what you got. The library had about 12 books. You could find some at Walden Books, potentially, which was about the only bookstore I really had available in my area. There was one in my town, and then there was one at the local mall, but that was it. It's not like now where you have the internet and, every city has a couple of bookstores or, places that you might get access to books on witchcraft or even information. So it took a while for me to really get a good grasp on paganism in general. Most of the books we had were like the Satanist Handbook, or the Satanist Bible, and things like that. The Encyclopedia of Black Magic is another one I remember. There was a fair amount of Bullfinch's stuff, but it was a little, I hesitate to say dense, but it was a little more like reading a dictionary than reading something engaging. It wasn't until the 90s that I really found good resources, one of which being Living Wicca by Scott Cunningham. At that point in time, there was a big advent of pop culture witches. The kids who are rebelling by becoming witches and stuff like that. And one of their big favorites was Silver Ravenwolf. That's another name I remember from that time period. I was never a fan. It always seemed a little more rah witchcraft, I guess. So I'm not saying that they were a bad author, merely that it wasn't my style. So, yes, I started reading when I was 12. I really started practicing about the time I turned 18 or 19, when I had some weird stuff happening in my life. Couldn't find any real explanation for, and I basically cast my first warding against spirits. And it's kind of been off to the races ever since then. That would have been right around 96. So I've been practicing very heavily since about then. So that would put that at being almost 30 years at this point, since this is currently 2025. I'm also an ordained minister with the Universal Life Church. I got that like about 20 years ago or so. But that's, brought me to where I am now. Little background behind that. So I was raised Roman Catholic by two Southern Baptists. They came from Kentucky and Missouri and decided they wanted me to have a good religious upbringing and education. But since we were in Northwest Indiana, they didn't really have any Baptist churches in the area at that point, or any Baptist schools at least. So they sent me to a Catholic school. So I spent 14 years in Catholic school, and all that really does, I've found, is either make you become a very religious person. Well, either way, you wind up becoming very religious. It's just whether you stay Christian or whether it's so off-putting you move the other direction. And for me, the hypocrisy I saw in the Catholic schools I went to and the various people associated with the church I was involved in just really put me off. So between my reading about witchcraft, which was mostly me being rebellious, and finally finding a book by Cunningham, which answered so many questions I had about life and why things seemed the way they were, really drew me in. So yes, as I said, I've been practicing since the late 90s. Got really big into tarot for about 3 or 4 years, to the point where I read, I think I do at least 2 readings a day, 5 days a week, for about a year. So I got really good with it, to the point where this past year I didn't get back into it, but I decided to really help people who don't know about tarot learn a little bit. So this past year at a convention, I held a How to Read Tarot event. It seemed to go really well. I didn't have any complaints, but then again, it seemed like I had 29 people in the group, and about a quarter of the group didn't seem engaged. They sat at the back, they didn't really engage with me or with any of the rest of the group, so it seemed more like people who kind of wanted to see what the big deal was. So whatever, but I enjoyed it, and about half the group enjoyed it. Most of them were not pagans, so that was interesting. I only had, out of 29 people, I only had about 3 pagans, and 2 of the people in the class or session, or whatever you want to call it, when I had them doing readings on themselves to kind of get a feel for the cards and how the layout works and stuff like that, they were looking at the cards, and they called me over to give them a little clarification on what one of the cards meant, and I kind of ran through the layout to that point to get a feel for what the layout was saying. And it was that the lady I was talking to had a lot of anxiety that she was dealing with at this point in time and things like that. And the gentleman next to her, his layout was showing a very supportive role for him. Found out that they were recently married and obviously together, and at that point I kind of looked at their 2 layouts combined, and it showed the new relationship, recently married, that they were, and that his supportive role was helping her deal with her anxieties and stuff like that. So it was really interesting that came up in their first reading. They thought it was really kind of weird for something like that to happen. Well, whereas most of us who are familiar with tarot know that that's actually relatively common for it to be that spot on about something. Another lady there, she raised her hand and she's like, "My deck is calling me out for bad behavior." And I'm like, "What?" So I came over and looked, and yeah, apparently she has a tendency to just kind of spend her money willy-nilly and make poor financial decisions. And it was very much calling her out on that. You know, the pentacle cards were everywhere, but instead of being like money coming in, it was all money going out and stuff like that. So really enjoyable event. So you may see that I've cut a little bit of film here and edited. The main reason for that is, like I generally do, as you could tell from the rest of the video, I started rambling for a little while about nonsense. So I decided instead to cut that out and just call it a day for this video. The videos I'm going to be making later will probably be scripted, so there won't be as much of me going and sitting and thinking for a moment. And I'll be a little more to the point than rambling. So I hope you liked this video. I hope you are interested in seeing other videos I make later on the topic. Either way, merry part. And if you did like this video, feel free to like it, subscribe, whatever. If you have any topics you'd like me to cover, feel free to leave a comment or hit me up, and I will see about creating a video on that topic. Thank you much.